As you know, now we are at the final station for the victims, where families were separated and where the SS doctors decided who was to live and who was to die. Apart from the new arrivals, there were some of the prisoners here on the ramp, the Canada Commando prisoners, who had to transport the victims' luggage from here to the Canada warehouses. They were not allowed to communicate with new arrivals, but secretly they tried to, in order to give those people, first of all, not to warn them, although they were also trying to warn them, but it was all too late. It would just arouse panic and nothing else. Because, well, when you came here, you were surrounded with electric fences, SS people ready to shoot you, so it was just too late to fight. But what the prisoners were aware of was that they could give advice to the people coming in order to at least save some more. For instance, Elie Weisel was a 14-year-old boy when he was brought here, and he was advised by one of the prisoners to say he was 18 when he would be asked about his age by the SS doctor. His dad was about 50 and he was advised to say he was 40. Young mothers were advised to give their children, babies, to the old women, because an old woman was killed anyway, while a young woman with no child was kept alive. Her baby meant death to her. At the very beginning, the SS people tried to separate the mothers and their children, keep the mothers alive to make them work for them, but it didn't work. Mothers didn't want to be separated from their children, were crying and fighting, and it caused so much trouble that the SS people decided that it would be simply easier, simpler to kill both a mother and a child. So the women were advised to give their babies to old women, but well, later in the camp, because the mother giving the baby to somebody else was not always aware what was going to happen. Because she was told to do so, so she would do that, and later on she would learn in the camp what happened to those who were separated from her, what happened to her baby, and the women were breaking down in the camp. Those who lost their children were committing suicides by jumping onto the electric fences. There is a story of a mother whose children were killed in a gas chamber, who was saved by her sister. Her sister was Helena Citron, and she worked in the Canada warehouses, which were near crematoriums number 4 and 5. And well, it's a story of an SS man falling in love with the prisoner, with Helena Citron, which wouldn't happen often. Believe me, it was not the case. It was just, you know, sometimes SS people were also humans, only humans. And she was beautiful. She did not have her hair removed. She was working in the camp warehouses, so she was well fed. She looked nice. She looked beautiful. And then that SS man fell in love with her. His name was Franz Wunsch. And once Helena, in a group of people walking towards the gas chambers and crematoriums, noticed her sister with her 2 small children. And she went to that SS man and begged him for help, saying, "Save my sister, she's the last one I have." And that's what happened. They managed to save the sister. She was already in the undressing room with her children when that SS man called her name and ordered her to go out. So she left her children behind, not knowing yet what was going to happen. The last words she heard from her daughter, who was an older child, was, "Mommy, go, don't worry, I will take care of my brother." And she left. And she never saw her children again. And Helena had a really hard time with her, because it was hard for that woman to forgive her sister for saving her. She said that if she had the choice, she'd rather die with her children. But we have to remember they couldn't rescue the children, they couldn't do anything for them, because we were just too young to survive in the camp. So Helena tried at least to save her, to save the sister, but as I told you, it was not so easy. Yeah.
I'll just close out our time on this spot with what for me is the hardest reading I have to give to you. You've mentioned Elie Weisel, and he wrote this. The cherished objects we had brought with us this far were left behind in the train, and with them, at last, our illusions. Every 2 yards or so, an SS man put out his Tommy gun, trained on us. Hand in hand, we followed the crowd. An SS non-commissioned officer came to meet us, a truncheon in hand. He gave orders. Men to the left, women to the right. 8 words were spoken quietly, indifferently, without emotion. 8 short, simple words. Yet that was the moment when I parted from my mother. I had not had time to think, but already I felt the pressure of my father's hand. We were alone. For a part of a second, I glimpsed my mother and my sister moving away to the right. Zipporah held my mother's hand, and I saw them disappear into the distance. My mother was stroking my sister's fair hair, as though to protect her, while I walked on with my father and the other men. And I did not know that in that place, at that moment, I was parting from my mother and Zipporah forever. I went on walking. My father held on to my hand. I think that sums up what happened here.